Please call meeting to order. So I'd like to call the meeting of July 21st, 2022 to order, please. Lori, please call the roll to make sure we have quorum.
Thank you. Fairfax?
Here.
Kentfield? Barry? Kentfield?
All right.
Thank you.
Dreaming.
Marin Wood?
Here.
Porter Madera?
Here.
Novato?
Here.
Southern Marin? Molinas? Southern Marin here? Southern Marin is absent. Molinas?
Here.
County of Marin?
Here.
Larkspur?
Here.
San Rafael?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Inverness?
Here.
Muir Beach?
Paul Jeske sent his regrets.
Okay. Stinson Beach?
Here.
Mill Valley?
Here.
San Anselmo? Let's see, Steve. Sleepy Hollow?
Here.
We
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks all. Let's see, item number 3. Any members have adjustments to the agenda? I'm seeing none. Let's move on to public expression. The public's welcome at this time to address the board of directors on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the board. Please be advised that pursuant to government code, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments must be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. And would you please all silence your cell phones and mute your microphone when you're not reporting out. Lori,
Is there anyone at this time wishing to speak to the board on any items not on the agenda? Please raise your hands. I see no hands raised. Thank you.
Okay, thanks all. Let's move on. Mark, Executive Officer Mark Brown, time for your Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, President Goins. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'll turn my screen share on if I can get a quick thumbs up when you guys all see it. Great. So we've had some recent fires along the 101 corridor lately. The first one being along the dumps. You see the picture here. Very typical of an early July, late June grass fire in northern Marin, southern Sonoma. We tend to get those fairly frequently during that period of time. It's just when the fuel conditions and the wind conditions align to have fast moving grass fires. Fortunately, this one had no impact to any infrastructure or homes, and the fire agencies were able to quickly contain it. We've also had a couple other fires down in southern Marin along the freeway, all caused by human activities and all quickly contained with no immediate threat to any structures. Statewide, the fire season's off to a slow start, and I've been talking to some firefighters who really appreciate the slow start. However, they're kind of sitting there with holding their breath a little bit and just sure that later on in the season, nature will have a way of catching up with that slow start with the fuel conditions that we have. I'm sure many of you have been watching the fire in Yosemite and the difference of impact to the redwood groves on this fire compared to the last couple of years of fires that were impacting redwood groves and destroying redwood trees that are historically quite resilient to wildfire. Fortunately, this year where the fires was where vegetation management practices, prescribed fire mechanical treatments had occurred, and the fires were much lower intensity, and the redwood trees are surviving. So that's great news. It also validates the work that we've been doing. Recent article in the Chronicle did discuss that recent work, but also some challenges, legal challenges to the work that's been going on, and provided some counter challenges of the folks that are challenging vegetation management work. They subsequently in the article, they had other scientists saying that science actually really isn't accurate. And the real science shows that good prescribed fire, good mechanical vegetation management in a responsible manner actually decreases fire behavior. So that ties right into our science and research page, which is a project that Maria Schmidt, one of our Grizzly fellows, has been working on. She has been collecting scientific research and now has it up on our website. So if you go to collaboration on our website and go down to science and research, you'll be able to see the articles that we have been accumulating in scientific research for people to dig into it themselves. And it supports the work that we've been doing. I really appreciated the editorial that was in the IJ a few weeks ago. Having a phrase, putting our money where our mouth is, I thought was really valuable. I appreciate that our efforts are being recognized. And I do want to take the opportunity to introduce to our board, and I'll turn off my screen share so that they can say hi to you guys. But we have two new full-time employees, one being Stephen Peters, who you probably have all seen before at these meetings, doing his Chipper Days report out. But that was when he was a Fire Safe Marin employee. And as you know, we transitioned Chipper Days from Fire Safe Marin to the MWPA. And then we also have Martina Wilson, our brand new management analyst, here on her 9th day of work. So I'll have Steve introduce himself first, and then we'll pass it off to Martina.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. For those of you who haven't met me in my previous capacity, my name is Stephen Peters. I formerly was the program manager for the Fire Safe Marin Chipper program. Happy to be coming on as the vegetation management specialist, specializing in the Marin County Wildfire Chipper program. I'm looking forward to continuing the great work we're doing and to be a part of this team. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Martina Wilson, and as Mark said, 9th day. However, it feels like I've been a part of the family forever. I come to the MWPA with a nice, well-rounded professional career in providing administrative support. I am enjoying to the fullest this last few days of really getting to know our team and really digging into the work that we do. I truly believe in our mission and our initiatives and our goals as they pertain to it. And I'm happy and I feel humbled to be able to offer the best of who I am and what I have to give in service to the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. So thank you.
Welcome both.
If you've seen a smile on my face recently, it's because we are starting to get a team behind us. And what I really appreciate about the team is that everyone is coming into it with the team attitude. And we have a check-in. If we're not in the office together, we have a check-in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And it really, we end those check-ins with how can we help each other out. So getting that team behind us, I really appreciate. And I just appreciate how everyone is embracing the team approach. Wrap up my executive officer update for you. One of the first tasks for the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment has been completed, and that is the literature and data review that is surrounding evacuations, surrounding what causes deaths or injuries during evacuations, so that we can push forward accurate information of what is causing the risks during evacuations, and also identify the mitigations that we can do. So we'll be getting a full report on that soon. And then they are already starting on the next phase, and that is actually building the models for the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment. IBHS has launched their incentives page, where they're letting residents and other people who visit their site know what agencies have incentives surrounding defensible space and home hardening work. And we were one of 2 agencies, I think, on their website that they have listed. So our networking with IBHS has definitely paid off. And then kind of sad news, but there's good news attached to it. This will be our last month for our 2 original Grizzly Corps fellows, Maria Smith and Josh Hampshire, being with us as fellows. So they've been just an amazing part of the development of the MWPA. I hope that they can look back at their fellowship with a sense of accomplishment and pride to know that they helped build this organization. The good news is Josh is accepted a position at Fire Safe Marin, and we have started a recruitment for our grants specialist extra hire position that was approved by your board, and we're really hoping that Maria puts in for that position. So we hope that we won't necessarily be completely saying goodbye to them. So more to follow on that. And then with bringing Martina on board, and she's going to begin shadowing Lori really soon here in the development of our board packets, and then transitioning into clerking our meetings. So not sure how that the timing will work for that, but if in case Lori isn't going to be clerking our August meeting, I'm not sure how that's going to work out yet. I did want to have the opportunity to recognize work that Lori has been doing for us, and personally thank her for all that work.
You're welcome.
And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Board members, any questions? Let's see. I see Kathy Donahue and Sashi.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for a great report. At the beginning, you talked about the freeway fires that were going on that was caused by human activity. I'd like to know what sort of human activity, because our constituents worry about things like that, and what do we have to do differently with the CHP, et cetera?
So the one along the dumps were chains between the trailer and the vehicle that was pulling the chains, knocking off metal slag into the roadway. The most recent fire in 101 near Spencer was, again, hot metal, whether it was chains or metal from a catalytic converter. When catalytic converters begin to fail, they spew out pieces of metal that are multiple thousands of degrees, and that's quite a common ignition source. And the one in Marin City, I believe, is still under investigation, but most likely human caused.
Thank you.
Yeah, so no great answer there. Those kinds of fires have been happening for decades and decades. Anyway, so yeah, great question. Sashi, please.
Thank you. Great report, Mark. I wanted to just add on the happy to see the science and research page. I think that's always really helpful, and also really happy, to see the UC A&R Forest Stewardship Series listed on there, because as you all may know, that I am the UC Cooperative Extension, which is the applied science arm of UC Ag and Natural Resources. I'm the UCCE Wildfire Vegetation Mitigation Program Manager for the County of Sonoma. So that's something we talk about quite a bit. And I'm also the program manager for the wildfire fuel mapper. So that's the only thing I would add there is that was something that UCCE and Pepperwood did together, was the wildfire fuel mapper. And when the wildfire resilience planner is developed, that can be that I'm working on with Sonoma Water, that can be added to that page. And then I also just wanted to add that we're in the process of putting together my Vegetation Management Division website, and that also has a bunch of scientific and research resources that would be great to link to.
Cross-link them all?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Share everything. Barbara, please.
I'm not sure if this is the right place for this, but I wanted to thank Ann Krelock, who came to our Ready and Resilient Ross Valley in Fairfax last Friday. And with other folks, she just did an excellent job talking about Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. And it was a group of about 40 people sitting in Perry Park, all outside. Anyway, thanks to Ann and stepping in and doing a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ann.
Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, she's doing a fantastic job. Any other? Okay, let's Mark, thanks so much. Let's take some public comment on this item, please.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the executive officer's report? Please raise your hand. I see none, but I would like to say something. I have worked for several agencies, and I mean a lot. I've worked for electrical agencies, wildfire agencies, cities, counties, doing elections, and this has got to be the most professional agency I have ever worked for. Marin County our Marin Fire has got it together. I have never seen such professional meetings the way they ran, just the way people treat each other. And it's very nice to see that. I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Lori, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, that's just wonderful. Thank you so much for taking a moment for your perspective. It means a lot to all of us. I know we've worked really hard and continue to do so. And thank you for your for your service. Thanks so much. We've taken a lot off of Mark's back.
You're welcome, and it really shows what you guys do.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any board members note session? Okay, everybody, let's move on to the consent calendar. Item 6, the opportunity for the public to comment on the consent calendar will occur prior to the board's discussion of the calendar. The board may approve the entire consent calendar with one action, or in the alternative, items on the consent calendar can be removed by any board or staff member for a separate discussion and a vote. So we'll start with public comment on this, please. Lori, is there any public comment on the consent calendar?
Anybody would like to speak on the consent calendar, please raise your hand at this time. I see no hands raised. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any board members wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Sashi?
Not sure if we want to pull it or not, but I'm okay with the other items, but I'm intending to vote no on item C, and I don't know whether you want me to pull that to do that or not.
It seems as though, yeah, if you would like to make a public statement, I think it would be appropriate to pull that.
Okay, so I request that we pull item C, and we've actually discussed it in Mill Valley, and would like to see other options be explored rather than the dedicated meeting space that's half the amount there.
Okay, so let's take that. We'll have that when we have that discussion, please, Sashi. So let's go. Looks like it is item C. So we have items A, B, and D. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar for items A, B, and D.
I'll move it. Second.
I see Dennis and Echo.
It's Rachel.
Rachel. Lori?
Fairfax?
Yes.
Kentfield?
Aye.
Marinwood?
Aye.
Porta Madera?
Aye.
Vado?
Aye.
Southern Marin? Oh, they're absent, excuse me. Bolinas?
Aye.
County of Marin?
Aye.
Larkspur?
Aye.
San Rafael?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Inverness?
Aye.
Muir Beach? They're absent. Stinson Beach?
Aye.
Mill Valley?
Aye.
San Anselmo is absent. Sleepy Hollow?
Aye.
Passes by unanimous vote of those in attendance. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. So let's bring up item C, office and meeting space at Marin Commons. This was pulled from the consent calendar for a separate discussion and a vote. Well, Sashi, you're one that pulled it. Did you want to make your statement here and give the board members an opportunity to state?
Sure. I wasn't at the last meeting and none of Mill Valley was able to because we were in closed session hiring our city manager, our new city manager. But these were comments I'd previously made, and I know that there were some comments made at the meeting when I wasn't there. Six office space things are okay by us, but those of us in Mill Valley, and it's not, I've discussed it with other members of my council at the meeting, are less than comfortable with the dedicated meeting space and think that there are other more fiscally prudent options that we could choose for that. So that's my reason for voting no on that. And we'll see what everyone else thinks.
Okay, thanks. If I make a statement here, this was okay. Barbara, you abstained. Sashi, you were absent. Is that what you want to tell us, Barbara? Is that you abstained?
Well, I'll wait till the vote, but I do want to say I'm supportive of the meeting of the office space. I still have concerns about the meeting space, particularly because I think we will be meeting less often, and I think there are other options, but thank you.
Okay, thanks. I believe that the rest of the board members expressed their support. If anybody wishes to make a meaningful statement, I'll entertain a motion here. If not, I'd entertain.
Don't you want to do public comment?
Let's see. Yeah.
He actually, sorry to interrupt, but that was already done for the full consent calendar out front. So that would have been covered then.
Okay.
Bruce, I'll be glad to move item C, office and meeting space at Marin Commons item.
Thank you, Dennis.
I'll second.
I saw Julie seconding. Barry, you had your hand up also.
I would like to ask Mark to elaborate on this, on the office space situation and what his thoughts are.
So I would ask Mark to be very brief. We have spent hours on this. We've literally, this is probably the 6th meeting that we've discussed this in great detail. And I do think that, Mark, if you can provide some information to board members, again, in summary, you provided a full summary in our board packet 2 months ago and then a month ago. So I really, frankly, don't want to go back through all the details again, please. Can you just give us the Cliff Notes version?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Southern Marin's been fantastic hosts. However, we are outgrowing that space. And it's not in a strategically accessible location for all of our member agencies. If we want to have our member agencies come meet with MWPA staff, or MWPA staff meet with member agencies, it's a difficult travel piece. With the vegetation management specialists being hired at each of the member agencies, or many of the member agencies, we'll be asking for them to come to MWPA offices to help coordinate with each other and with our staff. The new offices will allow us for that, and we are getting a very good rate for that. And then with our meetings that we have been conducting, we've been averaging 51 Brown Act meetings a year. Yes, we probably will be decreasing that number, but it is still a remarkable number, especially with the fact that we have 6 committees that are Brown Act compliant. And being able to hunt for meeting locations probably is not feasible when we get into the hybrid meeting environment. In fact, we have an example of where we need a hybrid meeting location, and that is for our Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break. We received a request to have that meeting be conducted in a hybrid fashion. So that just reinforces the need for us to build our own hybrid meeting location, that we have the scheduling control for it. We're also going to turn it into a larger meeting space for like our technical advisory team that's working on the evacuation, ingress, egress risk assessment. And as we start hosting educational items, like there's going to be a State Fire Services sponsored vegetation management, our DSpace inspector class, we intend to host that, and we would use that location as the classroom facility. And yes, it is an increase in our overall allocations for rent, but we feel that the efficiency and return on our investment is worth that investment.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks very. Barry, is that sufficient?
Yes, that's all I needed. Just thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. In regards to Sashi.
So we are voting on this in public, and it's on the agenda for a purpose. So I think it is important for everybody to be able to speak. Just briefly, I wanted to just say I believe that this is something that we will later hear about from the public. If not in the Citizen Oversight Committee, then down the road in how did you spend the money, and did you make efficient use of the money? This is something that I believe that we will later look back on and go, oh, okay, we could have made a different choice. So that's just my comment.
Thanks. Thank you, Sashi. And we do have there have been discussions that we do have the option to modify the contract, make different decisions here in the future as data comes forth. So let's see, other board members. Julie, please.
Yeah, Mark, I just have a question on what percentage is the meeting space of the overall MWPA budget?
I think it's 0.05%, 0.5%.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was muted. It would not be a meeting unless someone tried to speak, but Bruce answered 0.5% of our budget.
Okay. discussion, and I believe, Megan, regarding public comment, we've already had public comment on the consent calendar, so it's time. We do have a motion. So we have a motion from Dennis Rodoni. Do we have a second?
I second.
Catherine, please. Lori, will you please call the roll?
I see the first motion was Dennis and Julie.
Oh.
Are we changing that?
No, thank you. No, that's me bad. Thank you.
Okay, all righty.
I forgot about Julie's second.
With that, roll call, Fairfax?
No.
Kentfield?
Aye.
Marinwood?
Aye.
Corte Madera?
Aye.
Novato?
Aye.
Northern Marin is absent. Bolinas?
Aye.
County of Marin?
Aye.
Larkspur?
Aye.
San Rafael?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Inverness?
Aye.
Muir Beach is absent. Stinson Beach?
Aye.
Mill Valley?
No.
San Anselmo is absent. Sleepy Hollow?
Aye.
Passes 12-2. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks, board. Thanks for the discussion and all for just being real frank and honest. That's what we're here to do and respect each other too. Let's move on to staff reports, please. Item 7A. Alyssa, welcome.
Thank you. And I just also want to second Lori's comment. It is a joy to work for the MWPA. And our new hires have proven to be excellent as well. And so the finance report, we are in the process of closing last fiscal year and consulting with agencies about the progress of their core projects and rolling any unspent funds over into this year. So this report here shows we were at 68% of expenditures for the year, and we will have a final report in September, and in August we will have the first report for fiscal year 23. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, Bruce, you're muted.
You're still muted, Bruce.
Sorry, had a phone call here.
Oh, okay.
Move on to public comment, please, Lori. Well, I asked for director's comments. I'm sorry. And none. Let's move to public comment, please.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak regarding the finance report? Please raise your hand. I see no hands raised. Thank you.
No comments. And any discussion from the board? I see none. Alyssa, thanks again for your great work. We appreciate your support. Let's move on to item 7B, which is work plan update. This is 2122. Is that correct?
I think we might need to modify the title in the agenda there.
I'm confused. We're going back in time.
We are time travelers here. Lori, would you mind allowing me to share my screen?
So for the record, this is this should be edited to be the 22-23 work plan update.
I think the official staff report might mention both the 21-22 and 22-23. Okay, so we're covering all the bases here.
Your show, 21-23.
Good to go, Anne. There you go.
All right, great. Hopefully you can see my slide here.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So as I mentioned, we are transitioning from talking about the 21-22 work plan to the 22-23 work plan. You might remember that there were a couple of projects at the end there that I reported on previously that are getting moved from the 21-22 into 22-23 because they weren't ready to be implemented yet, like the environmental compliance wasn't done, etc. There are only 3 projects that fall into that category, including one that was just moved due to kind of lack of staff capacity, and then 2 that needed some action from federal partners. So those 3 projects moved over into the 22-23 work plan, and that work plan also includes implementation and maintenance of some of the previously identified projects. So we have a lot of great projects ahead of us. We're really excited to get going, and the environmental compliance is indeed underway for those projects in the new work plan. And you saw one of those items on the agenda today. In addition to getting going on the environmental compliance for our next projects, we are continuing with our grant programs. We're really excited to increase the award amounts for residents applying for home hardening, especially grants. And we've seen an additional, let's see, I think 60 home hardening grant applications over the last month for a total of 170 applications received, and another 34 applications over the last month for defensible space work for a total of 124 applications received. I think we're going to see an uptick in this activity as word gets out that we're streamlining the process, making it a little easier to qualify, and we're increasing the award amounts, especially for the home hardening. The chipper program is well underway, and we're about 1/3 of the way through this season. We've got about 775 pickups done so far. We'll probably see more activity there as summer continues and fire season becomes more of an item on everybody's mind. As you know, the Ecologically Sound Practices document was accepted by this board last month. Very exciting, and I and other members of the ESP practices or ESP partnership presented to the ESP group this month, just giving them an update, and it was a great event because it felt really good to get this thing done. A lot of work, a lot of partnership building, a lot of trust building, really exciting accomplishment. On this slide, I just want to show or highlight the photos included here provided by Jesse Fagoni with Southern Marin Fire. This is before and after for a portion of the Mill Valley Shaded Fuel Break. Work is underway for that. This area is near Sarah Drive, and you can see all of that dead and down material removed from underneath the canopy, but the canopy is still intact. So I want to make sure that you are aware of, and everyone listening is aware of, an upcoming meeting. We're going to be discussing the implementation of the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break, July 26th. That's next Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the Sleepy Hollow Community Center. We're really excited to hopefully see some folks in person. We've sent out a lot of postcards to residents all along the project area, a lot of emails and notifications out there. We're also going to provide an online viewing option for anybody who doesn't want to be potentially exposed to COVID. Can't blame you for that. We're going to have a link on our project webpage for anyone who'd like to attend remotely. We're also going to host a field trip for anyone willing to come out into the field on a potentially warm August day, August 17th in the morning. We'll feature some sites, probably 2 sites along the project area. One that overlaps with Marin County Parks and Open Space District land, and another site that we haven't chosen yet. We're really excited about that. We're partnering with ESP and Marin County Parks and Open Space. And then the last slide here is always kind of our numbers game. So some of the numbers here haven't changed. 280 miles of roadside evacuation routes that have been approved and are ready to implement or have been implemented already. And then our acreage has gone up by 23 acres because of that goat grazing project on our agenda today. So a total of 2,645 acres of vegetation management approved. And then we have still 12 miles of fire roads, but a lot of future plans for fire roads included in this current work plan. So I'll leave it there and answer any questions.
Thanks, Ann. Let's see, Julie, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann. And thank you so much for making the meeting on Tuesday for the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break hybrid. I know people really appreciate that. I've been talking up the Greater Ross Valley Shaded Fuel Break, and I think there's a misconception about what it's going to look like from far away. And a lot of people think it's going to be a scar along the hill of denuded vegetation. And I think we need to work on explaining, what's entailed and how it's really not going to be visible from other areas. So I'm hoping that will be something that you will cover.
Yes, absolutely. I think photos are super important and site visits are even more important. So this field trip that we're planning with ESP and with Marin County Parks and Open Space, I think is a great first step. We'd like to host another field trip in the future so that folks can see kind of an after also. So absolutely, we want to showcase this work. We want to show what it is as well as what it isn't. So maybe I'll show this last slide as another example of what it isn't. I mean, in this slide, this is another photo from the Mill Valley shaded fuel break, and you can hardly tell the before and after photos. There's so little difference. There's still intact canopy. One or two things have been removed, but it's really a light touch. And so I think, that's going to be part of the messaging and part of the public education for all of this work, so that we're really clear about the light touch of this work and how much of the vegetation that's being removed is really invasive, non-native stuff. Thank you so much for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Really great question and great response. Any board members, any of your comments? I would like to make a comment to that effect, Julie, to your question, is that the technology is out there to do some landscape simulations on proposed vegetation management activities. And I do think that there are some other folks who feel those concerns too. And I think a lot of people are thinking back, 40, 50 years to some of the old forest management activities that have transpired. That's not what this is. So I would just ask perhaps if you would investigate the possibility, of course, the costs and the benefit associated with some simulation work from key vantage points to rest folks, put folks, minds to rest. This is not clear cutting. This is not canopy modification. It's all underneath what you see on the landscape. What you're looking at, Mark, right there, you're looking at the canopy behind him. You could go in and do a complete fire adapted management work underneath, and there would be, in essence, probably a 5% reduction in the greenery that you'd see. So anyway, I just suggest maybe you take a look at that and we consider that now and for the future.
That sounds good, Bruce. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment. Oh, Julie.
Could I just add that I think the normal person who's not as deeply immersed in all these issues as we are doesn't understand that by eliminating the fuel and limbing up the trees and removing the invasives serves to change fire's behavior dramatically. And they expect, if you're gonna, they think a fuel break is gonna stop the fire completely, which is not. And then they think that, in order to have an effective fuel break, you have to remove every single thing. So I think part of it is explaining, like using the Caldor fire and the fuel break up there as an example, where you have 150 feet high flames, and when it hits the fuel break, the fire doesn't go out, but the flames go down to 15 feet, allowing the firefighters an opportunity to change the fire. So I think that's part of the education that needs to come across too.
Thank you, Julie. And I'm with you. This is, we're starting out here. This is a learning opportunity, and the more we do, the better. And I think we're just all going to become more and more informed with time. And Anne, you can handle this, and Mark too, Mark and team. Thank you. Other board members, and wonderful report. Public comment, please, on this, on Anne's report.
Yes, we do have a public comment. Catherine Greger, I will give you permissions to talk. And Catherine, I will set your time at 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm Catherine Greger. I'm a new freelance reporter for the Point Reyes Light. And I was reviewing the work plan in light of the Citizen Oversight Committee's recommendation that more funding and attention be directed to West Marin given its inordinate needs relative to the small proportion of the budget it generated. And I was looking for any general comments about that, as staff concurred with that comment. And if there's anything you can point to in this year's work plan that addresses that, and that's specifically for West Marin.
Bruce, if I may, this is actually going to be one of our agenda items later on in the meeting.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you, Catherine. You hear that Mark stated this response to the COC. It will be a part of this discussion. Thanks very much.
Okay. I was just wondering if there's anything in the work plan specifically that I might cite, like specific projects.
I'm happy to address that if appropriate.
Okay.
Let's address these as we go into the COC. We shouldn't be addressing those specifically right now.
And Catherine, we'd be happy to connect with you offline, and we can point you in the right direction in the work plan.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. Very important issue. We're all aware of it. Others, please. Any public comment, please?
Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? Please raise your hand. We do. Larry. Hi, Larry. Let me allow you permissions to talk here.
Larry Minicus. Hey, Larry.
Good afternoon. This is very spur of the moment, but yesterday I went to the end of Fridas Parkway with my wife to walk up there. And boy, was I surprised at the amount of work that has been done up there. And it's really impressive. And it's a great demonstration of the work that's getting done. And I would encourage anyone that has not seen it to take a little walk up there. It's really something to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for that suggestion. Other members of the public, please.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? I see no other hands raised. Thank you.
Thanks. Back to the board for any discussion.
Oh, you know what I do? Belle Cole just raised her hand. Can she speak? Let me give her permissions. How come it's not letting me do that? Okay. Is Belle there?
No.
She put her hand down. Let me see if she wants.
Her hand is down?
Well, it's.
Okay, that's OFA. Welcome,
Bill. I'm sorry, Bill.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have not much to say, but I wanted to call people's attention to the fire in Southwest France. They had, I guess it was last night in the news, they had a picture. This is in the Gironde, which is near Bordeaux. And they showed, I mean, it's pretty extensive wildfires. And they showed the space in the land next to the road, 300 feet on each side. They've just cut it all down, cut everything down, because that's what the public wants. It was absolutely fascinating to see the difference between the French public and us. In any event, it's worth looking into because wildfires are wildfires, and just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks very much, Bill.
Is there anyone else at this time wishing to speak on this subject? I see no other hands raised. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Again, back to the board for any discussion. I see a hand up. Who is Ahmed Badawi?
No, that's his speaker.
That'll be for our audit. The person presenting our audit, Bruce.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Let's see. Good. Well, let's move on to item 8. One of my favorite topics of the evening is board officers' elections. Executive Officer Mark Brown is going to present this report, and we'll receive statements from the candidates for MWPA President and Vice President. Mark, you're on.
You bet. So just a quick background so that we could have a thoughtful process for our board elections. The governance ad hoc subcommittee created the election process. And so as we know, we've solicited board members to put in a request to be considered for president and vice president. They both issued written statements, and now is their opportunity to express their intent over the next 2 to 3 minutes for their position, and then we can entertain nomination for president and nomination for vice president. And for the one board member to submit for president is Director Rodoni. The one member to submit for vice president was Director Mcmillan. So I'll pass it off to Director Rodoni for his comments.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bruce. I know you've read my statement. I just wanted to add something you may not know. I have a long family history with the Marin County Fire Department. In fact, my great uncle and uncle were Marin County fire chiefs. Another uncle retired as a 30-year dispatcher for the Marin County Fire. Several cousins and my brother-in-law were wardens and captains. And a cousin retired as a longtime mechanic, spent 30 years, all retired now. But the point I'm trying to make is, you know, the firefighting job is a tough job to do, and making it possible for their job to be easier is really what the MWPA is about, and that's why I'm so interested in it. My office has been a leader in emergency preparedness for Marin County. I co-chaired the Lesson Learned Working Group in 2018, which led to the MWPA. I'm currently the Emergency Service Director of the County of Marin and the DC3 Chair representing the Board of Supervisors. I learned that my job in all these roles is to provide policy, support, resources, and tools needed to succeed, and then get out of the way and let staff do their work. I'm a strong believer in that principle. MWPA has grown quickly into an organization that hit the ground running and has achieved a lot in its first 2 years, much to the credit of Bruce Goyne and staff. Now is the time for the board to govern, set and adopt policies, and let the staff take this organization to the next level. We have a great responsibility to the residents of Marin, and I believe we have the team in place to make that difference. And I'm really honored to be considered as the next president following in Bruce's shoes. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Dennis. And Julie.
I did not prepare formal remarks. I'm hoping that all of you read my rather long letter. The good news is I was reelected to the Ross Town Council on June 7th, so I can continue serving on this board, which was one of the main reasons why I wanted to run again for the Ross Town Council. This cause is really important to me. I first began when I joined the Ross Town Council working with Sashi on the MC Disaster Preparedness Committee, which moved into working with county people and forming the concept for the 17 county JPA, which led to Measure C, and I worked on that campaign. During the lockdown, when I was feeling completely unproductive, I decided that I needed to form a Firewise neighborhood group in my neighborhood that has 165 homes. And I still am on the board of that group, and I learned a lot by forming that group. Like Dennis, I think I have some roots of fire. When I was a kid, when we first moved to a brand new house in Orange County in the foothills, a raging fire came from Riverside and almost burned our house down. We were evacuated at 2 in the morning. My dad refused to leave. He wrapped the hose through his belt buckle and stayed on the roof to fight the fire, while my mom drove my brother and I down the hill praying with embers flying everywhere. And now where I live is in a similar area that is really ripe for fire. And it comforts me greatly to know that we can be more prepared and better educated and take the fear away from fire. And so I'm really committed and dedicated to the mission of this agency. I want it to succeed. I had lunch with Mimi Willard on Monday and was able to tell her that it was wonderful that there is a sunshine provision and that we are working hard to be transparent and effective and efficient. And there should be no issue with us renewing this tax measure when it comes due next time. So I also want to say that I'm looking forward to working with Dennis, and I so deeply appreciate everything that Bruce has done to start up this agency and evolve this agency. Bruce, you are an impossible act to follow, but we will both try our best.
You're going to do
Thank
great.
you.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, let's see.
You get to call for a public comment, I believe.
Comment? Yeah, I'm getting.
Or questions from the board members in comment.
Great. There we go. Questions from the board, please.
Catherine has her hand up.
I see Catherine Donahue, please.
I just want to agree, Bruce, you're going to be a hard act to follow. I mean, 2 years in getting this wonderful authority to be what it is today is just amazing. And I'm going to be stingy here. I'm from West Marin. I live in Inverness, and I just want to make certain that Mr. Rodoni is not going to forget about us, because you're a busy man. So I want to make certain that that all you have on your plate is going to be very organized, and I have all the faith in the world for you. And so I'm gonna give you my support, and but just don't forget about us out here.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Other board members, any comments, please? We have two superb candidates, and both issued very clear statements of the focus of their work, and to continue to grow this organization and help us mature and become more effective, continue to be as effective and I think more efficient. That's some of what I'm hearing. Any other questions from the board? Let's go to public comment, please.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak at this time regarding the Board of Elections, the board officer elections? Please raise your hand. I see none at this time. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring this back to the board.
You get a chance, Bruce, to say anything. I had my hand raised.
Oh, let's see. So I saw, hold on, too many changes. What's going on here with my screen? Bob, let's see, where's Bob? You had your hand up.
Barry. Are we nominating yet, or are you
Barry.
Still? I know what we were doing. So if we're nominating, I like to nominate, but if we're not, then I won't. So you tell me.
Yes, I think I see.
Barry
has a question first.
Barry, do you have a question?
Yes, I would just like to applaud the candidates for stepping forward. You know, the strength of an organization depends on people from the ranks and from the group that you have stepping forward and showing leadership. And I just want to express my appreciation to both of them for doing so.
Thanks, Barry. Well stated. Very well stated. I see where it happened to Bob Ravazio. You keep popping up and disappearing. I think we're ready for a motion, please, Bob.
Then I would like to nominate our county supervisor, Dennis Rodoni, for president.
I second.
Okay, motion by Ravazio, second by Catherine Donahue. Lori, please.
Fairfax?
Yes.
Kentfield?
Aye.
Marinwood?
Aye.
Corte Madera?
Aye.
Novato?
Aye.
Southern Marin?
Aye.
Bolinas?
Aye.
County of Marin?
Aye.
Larkspur?
Aye.
San Rafael?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Inverness.
Aye.
Muir Beach, absent. Stinson Beach.
Aye.
Mill Valley.
Aye.
San Anselmo, absent. And Sleepy Hollow.
Aye.
Passes by unanimous vote of those in attendance. Thank you.
Hey, congratulations.
Yay.
Barbara Kohler, Barbara, see your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Julie Mcmillan to Vice President, please.
Second.
Okay, Barbara Kohler and Sashi. Lori, call the vote, please.
Fairfax.
Yes.
Kentfield.
Aye.
Marinwood.
Aye.
Corte Madera.
Aye.
Novato.
Aye.
Southern Marin.
Aye.
Bolinas.
Aye.
County of Marin.
Aye.
Larkspur.
Aye.
San Rafael.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Inverness.
Aye.
Muir Beach, absent. Stinson Beach.
Aye.
Mill Valley. I'm sorry, Mill Valley.
Sashi, you were, we missed you, Sashi.
I said aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear
Sorry.
that. Oh, sorry.
Enthusiastically, yes for Julie.
San Anselmo is absent. Sleepy Hollow.
Aye.
Passes by unanimous vote. Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome new officers, Dennis and Julie both. Point of order, I believe the gavel is officially past the beginning of the next meeting, Mark, or is that correct?
That's how we discussed we could do it.
Great, because I just want to close out the meeting just with one sentence to you all. So let's keep moving. Let's move on to item 8B, Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report. Mark Brown and Rebecca Suggs, you can provide the board us a report on this item.
Yes, I'm going to pass it off to Rebecca. She will present the COC findings, and then she'll pass it back to me, and I'll discuss the action items recommended by the Executive Committee and the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
However, I need to figure out what order to go in here. Sharing my screen first. And then, okay. Can you see?
No.
Oh.
Let me see if you have permission. Try that again, Rebecca. I gave you permissions to share.
Okay. Okay.
Rebecca, if you want, you can email it to me and I can share it for mine.
Multitasking, not my friend. Okay, can you see now?
No.
Okay, giving up.
Do we want to perhaps move on to the next item?
Good
Rebecca,
idea.
Why don't you mail that to Mark and do that in the background, and let's move on. Mark, if you're ready to move on to item C, the DEI item, I think that probably make the most sense.
Absolutely. And I'll keep an eye on my email, Rebecca, while I do this. So in regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we really appreciate the opportunity to grow as an organization and learn how better to be more inclusive. So staff looked at our current efforts we reached out to several subject matter experts in DEI and received some great recommendations. Some of them specifically from the county's equity office. And then I had an opportunity to have lunch with Elijah Lardon from the Marin Center for Independent Living. And we just had a great dialogue. He made some awesome suggestions, and we have a plan how we can, the MWPA and Marin Sil can continue to partner in the future. We shared these, the staff report that you see in your packet today with numerous entities associated with DEI, including the entities that offered some suggestions to us at our May meeting. And then we took their suggestions and made some more updates to that staff report. I'm not going to list all of the ongoing efforts and the future efforts that are in the staff report, but I did want to touch on a couple of them. The Fire Foundry is by far one of our crowning achievements in regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion. A reminder that D-space inspections are for all properties, and we're hitting all the properties regardless of socioeconomic status, or and so we feel that that is a very inclusive program, and that our approach is science-based, and any decrease in wildfire severity and decrease in the risks that wildfires present is inclusive for all of our communities. We are reaching out through a couple of different knowledge and attitude surveys, one through Fire Safe Marin and one through the MWPA as well, to see how we can get our messaging and our activities penetrating into all communities of Marin, not just the communities that are engaged either electronically or happen to be involved in Firewise communities. We're finding a way that we can get to all of our communities. And then we are recommending that the board create an ad hoc subcommittee of a couple of board members to work with staff and work with some of our DEI entities at large to help guide our efforts. And then finally, we will be increasing the DEI training for staff, and some board members have expressed to me the desire to have some of the DEI training included for the board as well. And Director Radoni's offered the County Equity Office, because the County Equity Office isn't just for the County of Marin as an organization, it is for everybody. And so we can leverage that relationship to help provide some training for both staff and our board. And then we do offer the statement of inclusivity, non-discrimination, our accessibility statements, and our land recognition statements for your review. And then I think an appropriate route for that would be for the ad hoc subcommittee to work with our partners to refine those to something that we can bring to the board for final approval. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Great, Mark, thank you very much. And thanks for a very detailed package in the board packet. So thanks very much. Any questions?
And I do want to mention that Barbara Kohler gave me a couple great suggestions and contacts that we intend to follow up on in regard to making our website more accessible, and some professionals in this industry that can really improve our approach. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, duly noted. Thank you, Barbara. I saw that also, a great contribution. Any other questions or comments from the board? Let's move out to the public, please, for comment on this, Lori.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on the DEI item on the agenda? Please raise your hand. I see none at this time. Thank you.
Okay, with no public comment, back to the board here for what Mark is asking for is board members to come forward and volunteer to participate in an ad hoc committee that's going to help to address this, an ad hoc committee appointed by the board president. So Mark, I'm assuming you're looking for folks to contact you.
And I think we can wait for the transition of Dennis to the president.
Wonderful.
And just a show of hands of board members that may be interested in participating, and Dennis can take note of that. I'll take note of it and help Dennis remember. I
see 3 hands and maybe 4. Okay, yeah, looks like you're going to get some great intellect there, great support. Okay, wonderful. Board. Let's move on. Mark, are you ready?
We're ready to go back to the COC.
Yeah. So Rebecca, Mark, sounds like you're going to control there we go.
Just say next screen or next slide, Rebecca, and I'll get to the next slide for you.
Okay, next slide. So ta-da, our annual report is available. It was posted for you all to see. We're pretty excited. And so for this last year, you had 9 members of the COC working on producing our annual report through the work that we do to get ready. So the annual report itself was the last few months of work. And prior to that, it was doing the work that led to getting the report done. Mark, you could go to next slide. So to create the annual report, I thought you might like to see our smiling faces at work on one of our Zoom calls down at the bottom of that page. And one of you had asked in an earlier meeting, how many hours of diligent work did it take us to do this report? It took us, we did do that estimate. It took us 1,120 hours of work during the year, not just creating the report, but also doing the work that led to the report, which equaled 140 work days. Our real goals during the year were to be productive, to be hardworking, which is what the 140 days worth of work meant, and then to add value. So to add value, Mark, if you could go to the next slide. At the end of our annual report, you will find our recommendations. And here's what really the culmination of the year's worth of work was. Now you will first of all note that this annual report is for the fiscal year 2021. That might seem like a very long time ago. Well, yes, and it was year 1, and it required almost the whole year for us to get the work done because it was our first year of doing an annual report. And it required creation of all the new processes to do it, flying by the seat of our pants a lot. But to start with a list of recommendations, here are the financial oversight ones. These recommendations have been presented to the Executive Committee and the Finance Committee. Last Monday at the Finance Committee meeting, they actually put these recommendations on the list of work to get done. And including the next 2 on the next page, although Mark, before we go there, does anybody have any questions or comments about the first batch of recommendations for financial oversight? Okay, Mark, if you could go to the next slide. These are our recommendations for work plan. The first 2, as I mentioned, were also reviewed by the Financial Committee and added, because there are some financial implications, they were added to their list of work to take a look at, getting done in response to these recommendations. I'll pick another one just to give you an example of what we're thinking here. 2C, an identified senior official of the member agency should certify each work plan project proposed provides a higher level of service. The documentation we were looking at for year 1 included an item on the work plan that said, we attest to the fact that this is a higher level of service, and was a check mark. We would have liked to have seen a little more responsibility and a little more detail around what do you mean by, is this a new project that wasn't ever looked at before? Or is this a higher level of service? And if it's a higher level, what's the higher level? Are you spending more money on it, taking more time on it, more to be done? And then on the portal that will be used going forward, what it says is the member agency attests that this project is not supplanting projects that would be performed without MWPA funding. And then you answer yes or no. There's still the opportunity to identify who's taking responsibility here, what level within the member agencies taking responsibility? And is this brand new, or is it a higher level? And if it's a higher level of service, what is that higher level of service? So that's an example of what we're talking about in these recommendations. Any questions or comments about work plan recommendations? Okay, then let's go to next slide, Mark. Transparency recommendations. So, for example, in 3C, create a means for the member agencies to demonstrate that Measure C funds are not being used to supplant local agency funding for wildfire prevention and mitigation. Here, for example, things we thought about and talked about, a benchmark for funding, at least in year 2019-20, prior to year one, what was the local agency spending on prevention? Yeah. If not, then we don't want you spending too much shoe leather here. So at least in the year before you're looking at now, so whatever year you're looking at least in the year before, what was the local agency spending on funding for a particular project or a batch of, or the entire batch of projects that they're recommending? Just so that we can be sure there's not less money being spent by the local agency. That's an example of what we're looking at for transparency. Any questions or comments about transparency?
Seeing none.
Then, Mark, you could go to the last page and our general recommendation. I'll just read this one since there's only one, which is to encourage that more multi-jurisdictional local projects with more cooperation among member agencies and among the zones. Rather than a single zone project in core, let's do multi-zone projects in core. Our feeling is we're representing the county in this. We represent the county in all that we do, but we're representing the people that voted for this. And we believe that the county voted for, as they said, a coordinated wildfire prevention effort. And we think they mean the entire county should be looking cross-county at what can be done, not within each local agency, not within each zone, but across the full county. And for example, the Greater Ross Valley fuel break. We think that's a great example. We'd love to see more of those. Any comments or questions about that?
I'm seeing none.
Then we'd just like to say thank you. We hope you've seen added value from your Citizens Oversight Committee. And we don't want this to ever be looked at as competition, but we think we worked long and hard, and we will certainly be looking to be more efficient. Thank you.
Rebecca, thank you for your hard work. That 1,000+ hours. That's one person working full time for half a year. Anyway, so no, and it was our first year. Thank you so much. I know that Mark and team spent time responding to concurring largely with your recommendations with some considerations. But let's take this to the board now for
actually, Bruce, if I may, I'd like to do a quick screen share to summarize the deliberations and discussions at the executive committee, the finance committee, and the recommendations that were generated from those discussions, if you don't mind. Okay, so first off, I'll just echo the thanks of how much work all of the members of the COC put in. Their passion and desire to improve the organization was completely obvious, and I appreciate the approach they took, and I really feel that we had an open and honest dialogue through all of it. As I mentioned, the executive committee and then to an extent the finance committee had some robust conversations. Staff took copious notes during the conversations. They were frank during the executive committee and a lot of detail, and I think we are pointed in a really good direction to take action on these COC items from their annual report. We came up with 3 tables. One table is a table of action items to be taken on by the finance committee. And you can see there's some of these action items have an asterisk next to it, and that means that it also overlaps with another action, and I'll explain that when we get to that. Action item 1A or recommendation 1A is that it's about the word budget in our JPA language. Is that our revenue? Is that our expenditures? And it has to do with what type of loan debt that we can take. So that is a simple policy process. The finance committee can work with staff to develop that policy language and then make it a recommendation for the full board to approve. The policies that were recommended that we update and approve from the COC are the ones that are listed here. So again, the finance committee will work with staff to make a recommendation to the full board for those policies. Then here's one of the asterisk items, 1D and 1E, and it will coordinate with a task force that will be staff-led, working with our advisory technical committee and our operations committee, because these are types of policies that will affect our member agencies, and we don't want to create unrealistic expectations from our member agencies. So we want to gather intel and information and process recommendations from our people that are actually doing the work, doing the administrative work of the finance tracking, so that we can create modify our fund disbursement policy. And you can see that the deadline for the finance committee is the end of the year. When we get to the next slide, you'll see for this item, it's October 31st is a deadline, so that that information from that task force can be passed off to the finance committee to make the appropriate recommendations. And then items 2A and 2B, staff again will work with the finance committee to make a recommendation to the full board on a policy regarding funding versus implementation. Where are we, if we are funding or if we are implementing, getting clear requirements of meeting the language of the JPA that we are doing wildfire effort work with our money, and that any positions that are staffed are being staffed for wildfire prevention. Any equipment that is being purchased or any projects that are being completed are done in the name of wildfire prevention. However, we do understand that there's going to be an unavoidable collateral impact on other types of emergencies or other types of benefits that member agencies will receive from being members of the MWPA. So we just have to find that right balance to make sure that the funding is primarily and solely for wildfire prevention, but we have to be open to an acceptable collateral improvement elsewhere. Then our next table is for that task force led by staff with the Operations and Advisory Technical Committee. Again, you can see the asterisks of 1D and 1E, and that is to determine appropriate reporting tools and timeframes. That'll work with staff for items that have already been listed in our next item, to be honest with you. And that is, requesting feedback from our member agencies. Right now, we've asked for it to be quarterly. Some agencies were real good about it. Some agencies were challenged to meet that. So we want to make sure that we create a reporting and tools and timeframes that all of our member agencies can adhere to. And then when it's time for the COC to do the next report, they aren't having to shop around to our 17 member agencies. We'll be able to provide them a packet. Then 2C, like Rebecca was talking about, determine the appropriate form of certification. what will work for the member agencies and how we build that into the work plan portal. And then for the West Marin item, and looking at West Marin, it's low funding due to its low population base. And do we want to exercise the balance that we could do with funding, because we are mandated to have 80% of the revenue generated in the zone must be spent in that zone. We've been closer to 100%. Do we want to drop some of the zones down so that we can increase funding in West Marin? Well, we need to really assess West Marin's needs in comparison to their current funding levels. So staff will work with that group to prioritize, to create that needs assessment for all of the zones, and then we can fund appropriately based on that. And then appropriate reporting process that's very similar to 1D and 1E. Staff will work with those member agencies to update that. And then the snapshot of the aggregate spending for wildfire prevention in fiscal year 2019-2020, staff will work with that same task force. And then we'll continue to provide examples of our collaborative efforts in our annual reports, and then continue to encourage those types of efforts. And the final table is items that we felt were mostly resolved, but with one addition. But we feel that 1B was already resolved, but we'll circle back with the auditor to make sure that it was an appropriate way. And again, the expenditure tracking mechanism, we had one established, but we think there could be improvements, so we'll work with our member agencies. And with that, I'll stop screen share, and now we can go to questions.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you both. And Catherine, you're not going to get specifics here. I want to reiterate what Mark said about West Marin, is that there is a the commission is for West Marin to identify your priority, the work that you identify that's critical, and prioritize it and bring it to the ATC and ops for, so you're not going to get what you want today, but you're going to get it eventually. You're going to have to do some work before you're going to get that, okay? So I see you're smiling. Hopefully that's okay. Let's see, Sashi, please.
Thank you. Mark, thanks for summarizing the executive committee recommendations. And after I suggested that we have that staff kind of ad hoc, we had an internal meeting on our end about, kind of what our, response as a, member agency would be, and kind of the things we were going to work on. And it was brought up that there had previously been an operations committee, ad hoc finance committee. And so I'm wondering if any of those recommendations or previous work can be used to further this, these recommendations.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sashi. Other board members, questions for Mark? Mark White, please. Hi, Mark. Mark, you are muted, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Yeah, and Mark, thank you very much for that nice report. I'm looking forward to meeting with our fire chief as he recovers from appendicitis, but he is doing better now. Just what he needs, a 2-month-old baby and appendicitis. But at any rate, I'm looking forward to meeting with him and compare where we're going to go and what our funding levels are right now and what we need to access our needs moving forward. And I think it would also behoove us to work together with other agencies as well. And Bolinas is a possibility of that too, perhaps. Perhaps we can work together with that. We're trying to work together with them with traffic problems, so maybe we could work together with them as well. So anyway, these are things that we're going to put to work and try and consider working out. It's a good plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. That's what it's going to take. The harder you work on this, I think the better the results. Really great. Other board members, please. Well, again, Rebecca, Mark, really thank you so much for all your hard work. And Mark, your response and the work, you've got a lot of work ahead of you with the ATC and ops and member agencies. Let's go to the public, please, for comments on this item.
We do have one public comment on this item so far. Catherine McGregor, I will give you permissions to talk.
Catherine, welcome again. Oh, what happened?
Whoops. There you are, Catherine, are you there? There you are.
Catherine, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I noted that the discussion is still about how to apportion efforts and initiatives zone by zone. Item 4A was that more multi-jurisdictional local projects across zones may be needed. Is there any comment about how that might benefit the West Marin area in addition to directly apportioning funds only to that zone?
And Catherine, I'd love to connect with you offline, and I can fill you in on how our house out approach has been designed for the last couple of years, and how that impacts the multi-zonal projects, because most of the house out projects aren't at the intersections of the zones, and that's partially why there have been less projects crossing the zone boundaries. But as we extend beyond the house out approach, we'll start getting into the multi-zonal projects. But I'd be happy to, if you can email me, our contact information is on the website, and I'd be happy to set up a meeting with you.
Thank you so much. That'd be great for a follow-up story.
Thanks, Catherine and Mark. Other public comments, please.
At this time, is there anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item? Please raise your hand. I see no other. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Let's come back to the board for any discussion, feedback for staff, and a motion, please. No comments. I'm looking for a motion. Looking for a motion to accept the COC annual report for fiscal year 2020, 2021. And I see Julie.
So moved.
And Rachel. Julie and Rachel, thank you. Lori, please call the roll.
Fairfax.
Yes.
Kentfield.
Aye.
Marinwood.
Aye.
Corte Madera.
Aye.
Novato.
Aye.
Southern Marin.
Aye.
Bolinas.
Aye.
County of Marin.
Aye.
Larkspur.
Aye.
San Rafael.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Inverness. Inverness. They've been absent. Okay.
Aye.
Oh, you're here. Okay, thank you. Muir Beach is absent. Stinson Beach.
Aye.
Mill Valley.
Aye.
Thank you. San Anselmo is still absent. Sleepy Hollow.
Aye.
Passes by unanimous vote of those in attendance. Thank you.
Wonderful, thanks. Thanks again, Rebecca, Mark, and team. And Rebecca, our thanks to your team, please. I know you've all worked very hard. Look forward to your continued service here in this coming year. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Let's move on to committee reports. Or no, audit. I think we have Ahmed here present, Mark. So Mark, you and the representative from Badawi Associates.
Yes, and I appreciate Mr. Badawi's patience that we work through our meeting before we get to this portion of the meeting, but I'll pass it off to him. He does have a presentation to share with us. And if for some reason he can't screen share, I do have it so I can share it. But there we go.
Ahmed, you are muted.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me to your meeting. My name is Ahmed Badawi, and I was the audit partner on the audit of MWPA. Today, I'll present to you the results of the fiscal year 2021 audit. So let me just go to the presentation mode here. Right. So the agenda for today, I will let you know who the engagement team was, what were our deliverables and the scope of our audit, areas of primary audit emphasis, the type of audit report we issued, provide you some of the required communications, a brief overview of the new accounting standards, and then see if you have any questions for me. As far as our engagement team, this was the composition of our engagement team. I was the engagement partner. We always have a quality control reviewer, and this person is usually in the background reviewing our work, making sure that we adhere to professional standards. We had a manager assigned to the engagement and a professional staff. As far as our deliverables and the scope of our audit, we were mainly engaged to provide an opinion on the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority basic financial statements. We're also required to provide communication to those charged with governance, which is what I'm doing today. We also issued a letter addressed to the board discussing the scope of our audit and whether we had any disagreement with management. We also issued a management letter describing control deficiencies that we noted during our audits. In terms of areas of primary audit emphasis, there were two areas: revenues and receivable, improper revenue recognition. This is by default a risk area in any audit we do. Organizations tend to like to have more revenues usually, so the motivation to overstate revenue is always assumed to be there. In the case of MWPA, we rely on confirmations. We confirm the Measure C tax and reconcile that to the MWPA accounting records. Management override of controls is another risk that exists in almost any audit we do. Management are the one responsible for designing and implementing internal control, and they are in a position to override them. So we have to design our audit procedures to mitigate that risk. We examine journal entries prepared by management. We make sure that we assign more experienced staff to more complex areas of the audit, and we evaluate business rationale for any unusual transactions, in addition to many other procedures. As for the auditor's report, we have issued an unmodified opinion. That is, in simple terms, a clean opinion. The opinion states that we followed generally accepted auditing standards. And an unmodified opinion means that we believe the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, that all significant accounting policies have been consistently applied, that all estimates are reasonable, and that all disclosures are properly reflected in the financial statements. As far as required communication, on this slide is the responsibilities of the auditors versus management responsibilities. Our responsibility on the left side of the slide is mainly to express an opinion on the financial statements, whether they are fairly stated or not, to evaluate internal control over financial reporting, to evaluate compliance with laws and regulations, to ensure the financial statements are clear and transparent, and finally, to communicate with the governing body. Management is ultimately responsible for the financial statements. So even though we audit those financials and we certify them, it does not relieve management from its responsibility for those financials. Our audit provides reasonable but not absolute assurance, because we look at transactions on a test basis, and also we use materiality thresholds. Management is responsible for establishing and maintaining internal control over financial reporting, making all financial records available to us, adjust and correct the financial statements for any material misstatements, establish controls that will prevent and detect fraud, inform us of all known and suspected fraud, comply with laws and regulations, and take corrective action on audit findings. We're pleased to say that we had no disagreement with management. We also identified no material weaknesses in internal control. We did identify a couple of deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be significant deficiencies. And those are the lack of segregation of duties over journal entries and bank reconciliation. I mean, given the size and the operation of MWPA, obviously at the time of the audit, there were not sufficient staff or resources for somebody to review journal entries and somebody else to prepare them, and same with bank reconciliation. So just the segregation of duties in those areas. We have not become aware of any instance of fraud or illegal acts, and we encountered no difficulties in performing our audit. Management were very cooperative and forthcoming with information, and understood our role versus their role. So we appreciate that. Finally, once my slide turn here, I'm not gonna bother you with this, but this is a listing of all the new accounting standards that are coming your way in the year that they are due to be implemented. We normally have discussions with management. We discuss with them the different accounting standards and the applicability to the authority, and discuss with them how they can get ready to implement them. And that concludes my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I want to say thank you for allowing us the opportunity to provide service to MWPA.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. Mark, if you'll stop the screen share, please. Wonderful.
And if I may, I would like to respond to the lack of segregation for reconciliation of journals and bank statements. As you probably saw in our response, management agrees with that. And we also agree with the cause, and that was the size of the organization. At the period that the audit was looking at, the two employees that had access to that information were myself and Elisa. Now we've added, Southern Red Fire has added Lauren Wolf as an accounting technician, and we have added Martina Wilson as our management analyst. And our recommendation to the finance committee on Monday was for us to open up the internal controls policy and modify that in order to satisfy the concerns identified by the audit.
Thank you, Mark. Let's see, Rachel, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. In terms of the upcoming legislation or rules for GASB, are there any that we should specifically be paying attention to based on our current business model?
I would say that the most significant standard that is impacting most government agencies is the GASB 87, the lease accounting. However, MWPA, as of right now, doesn't have any leases. So I would say that from all the new standards, probably not significant impact, no significant impact on MWPA. All the other standards out there are may or may not be applicable, but not as significant as the lease accounting standards.
Okay, great, thank you.
Great question, Rachel. Thank you. Other board members, any questions or comments? No, thanks. Let's go out to the public, please, for comment on this item.
Anyone in the public wishing to speak on the financial audit, please raise your hand. I see none at this time. Thank you.
Okay, back to the board for discussion and a motion. Any further discussion?
I'm happy to move.
Rachel, a motion to approve?
Yeah.
Second.
Catherine Hilliard, second. Lori, please.
Fairfax?
Yes.
Hitfield?
Aye.
Marinwood?
Aye.
Corte Madera?
Aye.
Novato?
Aye.
Southern Marin?
Aye.
Salinas?
Aye.
County of Marin?
Aye.
Larkspur?
Aye.
San Rafael?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Inverness?
Aye.
Muir Beach is absent. Stinson Beach? Stinson?
Dropped
Marcus
off my
dropped off. Okay. Mill Valley?
Aye.
San Anselmo, absent. Sleepy Hollow?
Aye.
Passes by unanimous vote of those in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, board. Thank you, Ahmed. And thanks, Mark, for all the great work.
Thank you for being available to present, Mr. Badawi. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks very much. Let's move on to item 9, Fire Safe Marin report.
Yes, Fire Safe Marin was not able to attend today's meeting, but we were able to attach their report for your review.
Okay, so thanks, Mark. Any questions about the report to the board here? Oh, yeah, well, we have one report. Well, let's just, just any, it sounds like we have that one report, and Mark, nothing from the ATC or ops, but I expect we have a lot more here in the next several months.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. let's go to informational items. And just the items listed on the agenda, does staff have any other information items for the board? Seeing none. Okay. Future agenda items. Any board members have a request for future agenda items?
Hey, Bruce, if I may, Sashi, I think would like to offer information item.
So this is going to be my last meeting. As a result of my divorce, I am actually going to be leaving Mill Valley and moving to Santa Rosa to be closer to my work and to be, in a more affordable community. So just wanted to say it's been great working with you all. I'm continuing on, as I mentioned earlier, as UC Cooperative Extension Wildfire Mitigation, Vegetation Mitigation Program Manager in Sonoma, and I'm continuing my master's program thesis, which is around use of visualization to catalyze community consensus around wildfire vegetation management. So I'm still very much active in this space. So I'm sure all of our paths are going to be crossing often, and I'm not going to be that far away. So Stephen Burke will be replacing me at the next meeting as Mill Valley's representative. And then we, of course, have our former Mayor John McCauley on the COC. So Mill Valley is very well represented here. And Southern Marin will continue to be ably represented by Catherine Hilliard, which who's going to continue her great leadership there. So thanks all, and keep in touch.
Thank you, Sashi. Thanks for all your contributions and all your hard work. And I really wish you the best in this next this move, this new chapter. You just turn the page. Wonderful work. So thanks for all your contributions. Catherine, please.
I just want to say again, thank you, Sashi. I think we made a great team representing Southern Marin. I'm so sorry that you're leaving because of your ideas and all the wonderful contributions you've made. So absolutely good luck in everything coming up for you, and please keep in touch. So I would like to get your contact information once you get settled. Thank you again.
Thanks, Catherine. Barbara, please.
Well, I know that Sashi is very humble and doesn't like people to make a big deal about things, but she's been incredible as a member of this board and on the executive committee, and has really devoted an incredible amount of time. I don't know how she has the time. She's also a dear friend, so I will continue to see her. So thank you, Sashi, for your many contributions here and elsewhere.
And Bruce, if I may, I'd like to share what I shared with Sashi yesterday. I thanked her and like to thank her publicly for, there's not very many people that have done more in the formation and the development of the MWPA. Sashi's fingerprints are all over it. So Sashi, I thank you very much. You and I have had a tremendous number of offline phone calls, discussing strategy, discussing wildfire prevention, discussing how we can get better. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks everybody. Okay, any future agenda items? I see none. Well, here we come to
Bruce, just to dot all I's and cross all T's, we might want to open up for public comment for committee reports and information items.
I'm sorry, Mark.
Well, we didn't have a committee report. We did have a staff report that was available, and we also have minutes that were included in information items. So just dotting all the I's and T's.
Okay, yeah. Any public comment, please?
At this time, is there anybody wishing to speak on the committee reports and the information items? Please raise your hand. I see none. And Bruce, at this time, Mark White did call me. He has lost his internet connection completely and was sorry, sent his regrets that he couldn't get back on.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Item 12. This is my favorite time of the meeting. It's time. It's my last opportunity to serve as your president, to speak just a few words. And as my wife says, Cliff Notes version, it is really, truly, it's been this last couple of years has been a highlight of my career as a forester, as a firefighter, someone who has served public, my entire career. And I've continued to do this. And I have put in literally thousands of hours. I've little over 3,000 hours to what I figure in the 2.5 years I've worked. and it has been, I knew no one, none of you, 2 years ago when I asked, the honor and privilege to serve you. And I submitted my letter of interest and intent, identified the issues, and I made it, my daily chore to touch all the moving parts that were informative stages in bringing this all together. And I just want to thank you. This has really been an honor and a privilege. So, July 21st, 4:46 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bruce.
Very well done.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm bringing red wine, by the way, Goins Vineyards. For those of you who are red wine drinkers, we have 20 years of vintages here, and I've made it my job to sample a few bottles this week to make sure that what I bring. But I'm going to bring some really nice red wine, and actually enough that those of you who would like to take a bottle home, I'm going to bring several cases. Those of you who like to, we have some wonderful Zinfandel and Syrah. We have some wonderful blends, Cabernet. I have to dig through the cellar, but anyway, well, those of you that come tomorrow, I just look forward to looking in face to face and thanking you and shaking your hand, or maybe a hug or two. So thank you so much. And Catherine, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I can't. I got it. Countless hours and dedication, and making us, into what we are, helping to mold us with all of your experience and heart. And I'm so proud of what I serve on here with all of your help. And I know you're going to hear it again tomorrow and individually, but I want it on the record how fabulous, what a tremendous job you did to get the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority up and running. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Bruce. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you so much. It's been great. And Gabe.
Yeah, Bruce, I can't sign off without personally thanking you. I always say one of the reasons I'm in public service is because of smart, ethical, hardworking people, and you definitely epitomize that. And I want to add Sashi to that list. I really hope to see you sometime soon, Sashi. Both of you are truly inspiring. And, when we hear these comments like from Lori, how, this is an unusual organization, it starts at the top. And so to be continued tomorrow, we will not let you get away without 3,000 thank yous for every hour. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. Thanks so much. It's been great working with you. The ad hoc work, the strategic stuff. Your contributions are really, I think, underappreciated here. Look forward to continuing. Julie Mcmillan, I see Julie has her hand up.
Well, Bruce, I just wanted to say that you set the tone for this whole agency, and we could have taken a really aggressive tone by hiring a really aggressive executive officer, a litigious law firm, fight at all costs, CEQA consultant. But in your brilliance, you instead established or helped to establish the ESP and work to build consensus and look for problems and resolve problems before they became big issues. And so I think part of the reason why this agency is running so smoothly so far is because you have been at the helm, really working to, have everyone row in the same direction, in the same boat. And so I think setting the stage and setting the tone is so important. And we're on such an excellent path thanks to you. So I'm sure you're understating your hours. I'm sure it's more like 6,000 hours. Yeah. And we just have such a huge debt of gratitude to you for establishing this and getting us started. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Okay, folks. Well, let's tip a glass tomorrow, and all let's pat everyone else on the back here. We've just done an amazing job, and Dennis and Julie, you two, you just keep it going. It's gonna be incredible. Thanks so much, folks. So hope to see you tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Bruce.
Take care.